The morning of Easter Monday brought with it a silence that quickly turned into a tidal wave of emotion as news spread from the heart of Vatican City that Pope Francis had passed away at the age of 88. Just a day earlier, the world had seen him alive, fragile, yes, but present, at the Easter Sunday celebrations in St. Peter's Square. With countless believers looking on, he had offered his blessings and greeted the faithful with a warmth that belied his weakening frame. And yet, in the span of a single night, the Catholic Church lost its shepherd. It was Cardinal Frel who solemnly conveyed the message that the Holy Father had returned to his eternal home, to the presence of the Heavenly Father he had served with such devotion. In the hours that followed, millions began to reflect not only on the Pope's sudden departure but also on the life and legacy of a man who had forever altered the image of the papacy. Today we take a deeper look into his final moments, the rituals that follow the death of a pope, and how Pope Francis, always one to place humility before grandeur, had quietly reshaped these ancient traditions with his signature simplicity. It is still hard to fathom how quickly everything changed. Just the day before, the world witnessed him, not standing but seated in his wheelchair, waving with a gentle smile to the ocean of people who had gathered in the square to celebrate the resurrection of Christ. Though his body appeared frail and his movements slower than ever, his spirit had not waned. He was wheeled around the square with care, stopping often to touch and bless the infants brought to him by tearful parents who saw the moment as something sacred. His voice, though no longer strong enough to proclaim the Easter message himself, was echoed through the voice of an aide. That message focused not on doctrine or politics, but on a plea for humanity. He called for peace in regions torn by violence, including Gaza and Ukraine, and denounced the senseless craving for destruction that continues to scar the human story. It would be the last time the world would hear from him. Only a few hours after that poignant appearance, at precisely 7:35 in the morning on Easter Monday, the Vatican confirmed that Pope Francis had passed away peacefully. His final breath was drawn in the city he had led with mercy and courage. His health had been slowly declining, especially after a hospital stay earlier that year due to severe pneumonia affecting both lungs. The illness had taken a toll on his body, made even more severe due to a childhood surgery in Argentina during which part of his lung was removed. Still, despite these mounting health concerns, the Pope's sudden departure came as a shock to many. Eyewitness accounts from that morning describe a surreal scene. BBC reporter David Jaglani recalled how the moment the Vatican announcement reached the public, crowds began to surge towards St. Peter's Square. Some ran in disbelief, others stood still in tears, and for many it felt as though time had stopped. In the streets of Rome, a city that had grown used to his presence, grief was thick in the air. The man once known as Jorge Mario Bergoglio had walked a long and unpredictable path before arriving at the gates of the Vatican, and eventually at the gates of heaven. Born in Buenos Aires to Italian immigrants who had escaped fascist persecution, young Jorge's early life was far removed from any vision of priesthood. He worked jobs that seemed ordinary. He served as a nightclub bouncer and spent time as a chemical technician before he felt the unmistakable tug of a higher calling that pulled him to the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, where he began a journey of faith and discipline that would eventually place him at the helm of one of the world's oldest institutions. When he was elected pope in 2013, history was made. He became the first pontiff in over a millennium not to hail from Europe, the first pope from the Americas, and the very first Jesuit to sit upon the throne of St. Peter. His papacy, lasting 11 remarkable years, was marked by a radical departure from tradition, not in faith but in form. From the very beginning, he made it clear that the role of the pope was not to be cloaked in luxury. He declined the lavish papal apartments, opting instead for a modest room in the Vatican guest house. He traveled light, lived simply, and constantly reminded the world that leadership in the Church was about service, not privilege. He washed the feet of prisoners, embraced individuals with severe deformities, and made it his mission to speak for those who had been pushed to the margins of society: the poor, the refugee, the overlooked, and the forgotten. In what would become his last official message to the world, Pope Francis continued this theme of selfless concern for others. He called upon world leaders to protect fundamental freedoms, religious, intellectual, and personal, and implored them to seek lasting peace where conflict still reigned. His voice, though conveyed through another, carried the same passion and fire it always had. He reminded the global community of the responsibility to aid those facing starvation, to uphold human dignity, and to never lose sight of the fragile hope that binds all people together. Historically, the initial confirmation of a pope's passing involves the Camerlengo, a senior Vatican official tasked with verifying the death. In a scene both sacred and symbolic, the Camerlengo approaches the pope and calls out his baptismal name 3 times. If there is no reply, the tradition holds that the pope has truly departed from this world, and the official then announces it to the church. What follows is the ceremonial destruction of the fisherman's ring, a distinctive symbol of papal authority. The ring is crushed, marking the official end of the pope's ability to govern the church, preventing its misuse, and signaling the closure of his earthly mission. The rituals that ensue usually unfold with stately grandeur. Within 24 hours, the late pope's body is customarily embalmed and placed on a raised structure known as a catafalque inside the Grand St. Peter's Basilica. Here, thousands of faithful are given the opportunity to pass by, pray, and pay their final respects. In burial, 3 nested coffins are used. First, one of cypress wood to reflect simplicity. Then, a lead coffin representing durability and finality. And lastly, an outer oak coffin symbolizing the dignity of the Church and the Pope's enduring legacy. These layers are not merely practical but speak to the sacredness of the position held by the Holy Father. But in characteristic fashion, Pope Francis reimagined these long-standing customs to better reflect the principles he held close throughout his life. He had already approved simpler funeral plans well before his death. Instead of the triple coffin tradition, he requested a single wooden casket lined with zinc, modest yet dignified. Furthermore, he declined to have his body displayed in the traditional manner upon the catafalque. Rather than being set out for public viewing, he preferred a more intimate setting, asking instead to remain within his coffin with the lid open for visitors to quietly offer their prayers and farewells. Perhaps the most striking departure from centuries of precedent was his final resting place. Whatever happens in the days to come, it will unfold under the gaze of a world that is yearning, not only for a new leader but for meaning, direction, and hope. The conclave may be held behind closed doors, but its outcome will echo across continents and cultures. Whether whispered in prayer or shouted in celebration, the name of the new pontiff will be received with both reverence and curiosity. And yet, even as the white smoke rises and the balcony doors open, the legacy of Pope Francis will remain, woven into the fabric of the Church, etched in the hearts of millions, and echoed in the cries for justice, mercy, and love. This is not simply the end of a papacy. It is a moment that invites all of us, regardless of creed or country, to reflect on the kind of leadership the world needs. In Pope Francis, many saw a man who chose the path of humility over grandeur, service over status, love over power. The Church he helped shape was not perfect, but it was more present, more real, more human. As his funeral rites draw near, and as the College of Cardinals prepares to choose a successor, the world holds its breath, not in fear but in faith. The journey that began at the ends of the earth now returns to its center, not as a conclusion but as a call. A call to keep building bridges. A call to lift the lowly. A call to live with hearts open wide. May the memory of Pope Francis not be confined to history books or marble tombs. May it live in action, in every small gesture of kindness, in every voice raised for the voiceless, in every soul that dares to love without limit. The shepherd is gone, but the path he walked remains. and it is now up to us, and to the next leader of the Catholic Church, to follow that path with courage, compassion, and unwavering faith.